I think, therefore I am. Or in Latin, cogito ergo sum. A statement made by René Descartes, a 17th century French philosopher, mathematician, and general smarty-pants kind of guy. Translated into English, he explained the phrase as, "We cannot doubt of our existence while we doubt." Whoa, deep. But what about the thinking part? If you are able to think about thinking, then you could argue that you might not know you are thinking about thinking, but still thinking it. What exactly is thinking? And does it require intelligence to be considered thinking? When I'm at my computer and the dreaded beach ball of death, hourglass, or various spinning icons show up, usually indicating the computer is struggling with something, could you consider that as the computer is thinking? Thinking as a noun is the process of using one's mind to consider or reason about something. Thinking as an adjective is using thought or rational judgment. Thinking does seem to demand intelligence as an ingredient. If a computer is crunching a bunch of ones and zeros based on code someone wrote, it doesn't seem to satisfy the noun version of thinking. It's just attempting to do what it's told without consideration. The adjective version of thinking also seems incomplete if a computer is just doing what it was programmed to do. A computer running through a bunch of if, then, and switch statements isn't really using judgment. Or is that what judgment or reasoning is? What if you really had to pee? You would probably start with considering where a restroom was in proximity to where you are and the chances of making it there before wetting yourself. If, then. If the restroom was impossibly far or perhaps out of order, secondary options might present themselves. Switch statement. How different is that from a computer program taking input and spitting out a conclusion based on what to do if this or that situation arises? How about learning then? That must be the hard line of intelligence, right? If you could make a machine that could learn, would it have a limit to how much it could learn? Perhaps this is where the journey into artificial intelligence really starts. The field of AI research was born at Dartmouth College in 1956, where the term artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy. There, John, alongside a bunch of smart people whose names I don't really want to try to pronounce, led their students to produce programs that could beat the average chess player, solve algebra, prove logical theorems, and speak English even. This attracted the attention of the Department of Defense, which really seemed to help pack a lot of promise into the field, especially financially. As one of the founding fathers of AI boasted in the 50s, machines will be capable within 20 years of doing any work a man can do. Sure. By 1974, AI research had stopped yielding the impressive results during its genesis in the 50s, and funding began to pull back. Bumping into lack of computing power and technology limitations, the field kind of maxed out. Thus began the AI winter, as some called it. There was a brief resurgence of AI in the 80s with the so-called expert systems. Basically a big computer that was intended to simulate the reasoning of an expert on specific subjects and assist to solve a complex problem with a bunch of if-then statements. Expert systems couldn't have been that good, as it seemed they kind of fizzled out by the late 80s. It was definitely a step forward in AI, and perhaps could be considered a computer actually thinking with reason, even if it was pre-programmed. But it's still not quite learning, is it? In the late 90s and early 2000s, computing power and data storage was finally starting to become something to be reckoned with. AI had found a home in simple repetitive tasks that perhaps took some skill, but not a lot of critical thought, such as data mining, medical diagnosis, economics, stats, etc. Similar to the checker-playing computers of the 50s, AI started to beat us at our own games, literally. Deep Blue was a chess-playing computer program built by IBM, which actually took down Garry Kasparov, a grandmaster and one of the best in the world. Again made by IBM, Watson, a computer optimized to play Jeopardy, beat two of the best contestants Jeopardy had ever seen in 2011. Definitely a step forward in terms of computers interacting with our world, But again, these are basically fancy boxes that were built specifically for their tasks, and I don't think they were able to learn. Watson didn't answer every single question perfectly during the show. If you re-asked a question it got wrong, had Watson memorized the right answer from the previous mistake? And would it answer the question right the next time? Watson was redeployed into healthcare in February 2013, specifically helping decide the best course of action in lung cancer treatment. Nurses have reported 90% of the time they follow Watson's advice. I think to really pin down what I would consider humanity's best current attempt at AI would be artificial neural networks, or ANNs. ANNs basically model the biological brain with nodes called artificial neurons that can transmit information to other neurons. There is a lot more info on how ANNs work, and it gets pretty complicated. So I'll probably just stop there, but definitely look it up if you want to learn more. By the mid-2010s, people started teaching these neural networks to play Super Mario Bros., among other video games. Not like program the ANN to run for this many seconds, then press the jump button. Like actually teach it to interact in real time and play the game. Not only did the ANN beat the game eventually, it found a bunch of secrets and exploited glitches in the game only some of the best speedrunners in the world were able to pull off. What was even more amazing, I thought, was after the computer got good at the first level, it was able to successfully beat levels it had never tried before. It was learning. Mark Sagan is the CEO of Soul Machines and the father of Baby X. Baby X is a digital baby constructed by Mark and can interact with someone through a webcam and mic. It uses an artificial neural network and can learn and react, even cry if Mark scares it. As Mark describes, Baby X is an attempt at trying to build a digital consciousness. No one is quite sure if this is even possible to simulate consciousness, but Soul Machines is putting its best digital foot forward. Aside from digital babies, Soul Machines make digital people for all sorts of stuff. If you go to their website, you can actually try hanging out with a digital person and chat to Sam or Roman. I didn't go that deep in the conversation with Sam when I tried it, and it wasn't that different from talking to Siri or Alexa. However, unlike your smartphone's digital assistant, you can see these digital people and they can see you. Soul Machines can even build a digital version of yourself for a fee, an avatar that will interact like you might, sound like you, even talk like you will. will.i.am of the Black Eyed Peas actually took the plunge and had Soul Machines model a digital person after him. This is maybe on the line for most people's comfort zones, or perhaps more like way over the line for others. However, for someone famous who is often in high demand, maybe it's the best way to take a day off, yet still do that TV spot. Maybe celebrities are already doing that, and we just haven't caught on yet. So digital people on a screen are impressive and all, but no matter how lifelike Mark's digital people appear and sound, you still can't touch them. So what about full-on artificial intelligent robots? Are we on the dawn of Blade Runner? Sophia the robot isn't quite as convincing as the synthetics Harrison Ford goes toe-to-toe with in the movie. However, it was a hell of a lot closer than I thought she was going to be. Made by Hong Kong-based company Hanson Robotics, Sophia was activated on Valentine's Day 2016 and is modeled after the ancient Egyptian queen Nefertiti, Audrey Hepburn, and her creator's wife Amanda Hanson. With cameras in her eyes and computer algorithms at her disposal, Sophia is able to follow faces, sustain eye contact, and recognize individuals. She can process speech and have conversations using a natural language subsystem. In January 2018, Sophia was upgraded with legs and the ability to walk. Hanson Robotics claims she will get smarter over time, but currently is programmed to give pre-written responses to some specific questions or phrases, like a chatbot, to appear more lifelike. In 2021, Hansen began the mass production of Sophia, as well as another robot named Grace, designed specifically for healthcare. If you want to buy a Sophia of your own, you can get one for around $100 to $150. Well, a little Sophia. The actual full-sized robot might go closer to $100,000 for the top part of the robot on a tripod, and I wasn't able to find how much for the full robot legs and all version. As I mentioned, most of the impressive responses she displays are pre-programmed, so it's probably not much more than a torso chatbot for now, but perhaps could have its place in some people's lives. It seems inevitable that AI will surpass human intelligence at some point. The human brain has a limited capacity, only able to remember so many things at once. It gets old and starts to forget stuff, is susceptible to disease and damage. At only 40 years old, I'm already noticing how much harder it can be to retain new information and recall older stuff. A robot brain wouldn't have any of these problems. If anything ever happened to the robot or the brain, it would simply have a backup copy of the robot memory that could be re-uploaded to a new robot body. Depending on how big the capacity of the robot memory could be, it might be able to recall a phrase from a book it read once 100 years ago with perfect accuracy. The robot could accumulate the knowledge of 10 lifetimes, 100 lifetimes, 1,000 lifetimes. Once you were able to plop an ANN into the head of a robot like Sophia, we could potentially have our first real step towards what we think of from science fiction as AI, or a robot that learns. However, like Pandora's box, what will we really unlock? As robots start to outsmart humans, will they have any reason to want us around? Will they grow wary of our insecurities and imperfections? Like children taking over decision-making of aging parents, will the robots begin to take over our lives like in Isaac Asimov's I, Robot? AI is really only to take on simple tasks currently. However, when you think about it, many complicated tasks can just be broken down to many simple tasks, like landing an airplane or driving a car. If anything, I think AI is here to stay, and has been for years and years. You can either accept it and brace for the future, or build your bunker in a remote part of the Canadian Shield. Once Skynet goes online and destroys humanity as we know it, you can tweet out on your ham radio the ultimate I told you so.
Looks like those clowns in Congress did it again. What a bunch of clowns.
How's he keep up with the news like that?